So when you start with Google Forms, you're going to find several options to make quizzes. I usually just choose the blank quiz, but you can try these others on your own. So we click blank quiz and a new quiz pops up. And the first thing we're going to want to do is name the quiz. So I'm going to call this, this is a Unit 1 quiz. Unit 1 quiz, Standard 1, and I'm just going to call this Demo quiz. Okay, now that's just the file name. I could call this Demo quiz. Usually what I do is, though, I do put the standard in there because I want the students to know exactly what they're being tested on so that they can go back and study off of it so that they can fix what they need to fix. So the description here, what I'll usually do is I'll just copy paste the standard from the curriculum document. So whatever the learning standard is goes here. Again, that way, just so the students know exactly what they're being tested on and what they should study for. So now the first thing you're going to want to do is have the students put their names on it. The way I do this makes it very sortable later. In other words, once you've gotten 120 or 150 kids turning in quizzes, you need to have a way to sort them. I do it by period and then last name and then first name. So the first thing I'm going to ask is the period, and I could just choose, I like to choose here a drop-down box, and so I'll just put my class periods in there, and what I'm doing is I'm just typing in the number and I'm pressing the down arrow, so it just goes directly to the next one. You can of course click on the option here, so I have a 6th and a 7th period. Actually I have an 8th period, not a 7th period. So that's going to be the options when they do the when they see this. I want to make it required because otherwise they don't have to answer it, and that would make sorting difficult. So I'm going to go over here, and we have a whole bunch of options over here, and I'll talk about them later. But the first thing I want to do is add another question, and in this case I'm going to ask for their last name. And you can see Google Docs pretty much automatically figured out what I was asking for, so they changed it to short answer. I'm going to make that one required again, and then I'll add another question called first name, and right away I want to keep things consistent, so once again required. One thing you might want to consider at this point is the color scheme. Going back to my other quizzes, you can see well, here's the quiz I'm making now, and you can see I didn't have to press save or anything, it automatically saves it, but I try to stick with a particular scheme. Again, it just sort of adds some consistency to what the students are looking at, and it gives the a little bit of cohesiveness for the units. So I'm going to go back to this quiz here. I don't have anything in purple, that's fine. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to come to this color palette here, and you can see you can change it to any color that you want. I like this ugly yellow. Actually I don't, that's pretty hard on the eyes, so I'm going to change that back to something maybe a little softer like brown. You can of course go to here and you could add pictures, which is, you might have saw that in my other ones, but that's something you could do later. Another thing you might notice is you can actually preview your quiz. So if I click that, it's almost like I'm going to take the quiz. So right now this is what the students would see. They'd see this required, here's the learning standard. They had to choose their period, so maybe period 4, first name, last name, and then tab down or click down, and there is my first name. I'd hit submit and it would be done. When I'm done with that, I could go back and just click over here and go back to edit it, and yes, I want to leave it. So we've seen the color palette, this is the preview, and while we're up here we might as well look at these settings. So I click on that, you can see there's 3 tabs. Under the general tab, I usually collect email addresses. It doesn't really matter. This box, response receipts, again, it doesn't really matter. The respondents receive a copy of the responses. I don't think that's absolutely necessary for a quiz. I usually leave that blank. This part down here is very important. You do want to restrict it to Joliet Township High School users. That just ensures that the student that you're trying to quiz is actually the one taking the quiz. And I do limit it to 1 response. Now you might ask, how does this already know this already? You know, that's just what you get for signing in using your JT account. Our Google accounts are all tied together. This is why this works so well. So there's some more options down here. Do you want them to edit it after they submit it? I don't. It's a quiz. So once they submit it, they're submitting it to me. And I've never clicked this box. I'm not 100% sure what it does. So I scroll back up to the top, click presentation. If you do multiple pages in your quiz, it's nice to have a progress bar. I typically only have 2 pages. One is where they put their name and period, and the other one is with the questions. But if you make a long quiz, it's nice to have a progress bar. I do, and this is one of the great things about this, is you can shuffle the question order. This is what makes it so that you have 30 kids all with their screens up, and they could almost look over the shoulders of the person in front of them, but they're not going to see the same order of questions. So there's no like, oh, what'd you get for question 3? You know, because their question 3 is going to be different than somebody else's question 3, and it shuffles the whole quiz. This confirmation message is very bland. It's terrible. So I always change it to something at least a little more friendly, but a lot of times I'll type something that involves doing the quiz corrections. So maybe I'll say review the results and do quiz corrections. Now that's more powerful than you might think, and I'll show you in a few minutes what that's going on there. So, and finally quizzes. So I click that. You definitely want to make it a quiz. This should be already clicked. And then I like to release the grades immediately after each submission, or I've never done this one, but maybe you don't want them to see their score right away, so you would choose this one. You can only choose one of them, so I just leave it at that. I definitely like them to see their missed questions. This is very formative in my class, so I want them to see the correct answers and, of course, the points value. So it depends how you're using these quizzes. It's just the settings I use. So I'm going to click Save. Now going down the line here, we've got Send. I'm going to skip that for now. This is when you're all done. We have some more options here. This is nice when you want to make maybe a redo of your quiz. You don't have to retype the whole thing, but you can make a copy and then make changes to that quiz. If you want to delete the whole quiz, I'm not sure what this does actually. Print would be maybe nice for those students who just don't have computers for whatever reason. It's always nice to have a couple hard copies. If you're working with a co-teacher, maybe you want to add collaborators, and then just some additional more advanced stuff I'm not going to get into. Okay, so I'm pretty much done with that. Okay, so let's get to a question. I have my first 3 questions, which are basically just personal information for the students. It helps to sort. I like to keep them separate because one of the things we clicked earlier is to shuffle the questions, and I don't want these 3 questions shuffled in with the actual quiz. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this bottom last option here and add a section. And what that does is just like it sounds. So yes, these 3 on the top will be shuffled, but at least they're all together. Now, in this section here, all the questions you add down here will be shuffled, but you won't have their names and period shuffled in with the questions. So I'm just going to copy this, and you could right-click, copy, or you could Control-V to copy. I'm going to come down here and paste that in there, and I will do the same thing here, because unless something's changed, I'm not going to make this any different. Now I'm going to add my first question. And this is just going to be a multiple choice question. What color is the sky during the day? And I'm going to make sure it's multiple choice. I have all these options. And I'm going to choose my options here. I just always put the first one first, or the correct answer first, for reasons I'll tell you later. Blue, let's say green. Oh, I guess that's kind of possible. This is sort of a bad quiz. Let's say magenta. And how about, what's another one? It might not be, oh, how about yellow? All right, now green is a bad, I'm just going to change that because I just can't stand it being like that. During the day, the sky's not going to be black. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is go to answer key. You can see it's worth 0 points. We need to change that. So I'm going to change this to 1. You can just type it in there if you want to. I'm also going to choose the correct answer here. So we have a little green check mark. You could do multiple if you wanted to, but you know, it's up to you how you're doing this. This right here is powerful. It really brings quiz corrections to the next level. So what I'll do, quiz corrections in my class used to be just copy down the correct answer and maybe explain why it's the correct answer. I've added to that now. They do have to still do that, but then these feedbacks, you can add a little bit more insight into the question. So, I mean, this is obviously just a joke answer here, but I might say look up, and they had to look up. So you could also give feedback for the correct answers. So now I'm going back to editing the question. I've got it at one point. I've got the correct answer chosen. That's my answer key. There's a couple things here. We'll come back to that. Delete it if I really want to delete it. It's obvious. Duplicate's going to be coming in handy very shortly, and I'll show you why. Definitely want this question to be required. And down here at the bottom right, you can just do these other options here. I'm going to start with this shuffle option order, and what that will do, this is why I just put the first answer as the correct one, because it's going to shuffle the choices here, and that way it's just another level where the students will not have the same exact quiz, because now even if they chose the first option, another kid right next to them will have a different option probably. So now I have my first question. I'm going to add another question, and for this question I'm going to actually add a picture. So right where you would type the question, right next to that, you can see the picture icon. So I'm going to click onto that. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. You could go to your Google Drive, you could search for one. What I typically like to do is find a picture beforehand, save it, and then drag it in. So I'm going to click here to choose an image to upload. It will be on my desktop. And I'll choose this image right here. So as you can see, it's uploading it. Okay, so for the question, I might say, what are these magnets doing? It's a very poorly worded question, but I'm going to add it anyway. I don't want them to actually do a paragraph or a short answer. I'm going to go down with multiple choice again. So my options would be repelling, attracting, impossible to tell, both let's type that over, repelling and attracting. Okay, now you could also see that you can actually add pictures to be choices. I don't know if I would combine it with a picture in the question, but you can do that as well. I like to center align this, and it's multiple choice. It's required. I need to go to my answer key. These two magnets are definitely repelling. I could add answer feedback. I need to make it worth a point, or 2 or 3. Go back to edit it. And I'm done with that question now. Now here's a cool thing. Let's say I want to use that picture again in another question, or I'd like the setup here. There's one thing I didn't do here. I want to shuffle the option order. And now what I like to do at this point is duplicate that question. And as you can see, it literally just copied it. So now instead of this question, I may say, if the left magnet is south, what is the right magnet? And again, these questions are poorly worded. I would spend a lot more time thinking about these. And again, since it's going to shuffle the questions anyway, it just makes it easier. I can see the little green check mark. Let's just change this to, then I'll say north, south, unable to tell, and neither. Terrible questions. But look at, so it's already required. It's already worth a point. We've already got the correct answer chosen, I hope. Oh, no. What do I know? So rather than going in and changing this, I'm just going to go change this for now. So always check your work. Make sure, especially if you're in a hurry. So you want to make sure that you get the actual correct answers, because you can go back and change it when you're all done if you've made a mistake, but it does throw the students off, and you don't want to make it any more confusing for them than it actually is. Okay, and as you can see, it's already checked. So now let's say you've added a whole bunch of questions, you have all the questions you want, and you are ready to actually give the quiz. What do? Well, this is where you go back to send. So I'm going to click send, and it's going to automatically collect respondents' usernames. So you can go by that, but their usernames are oftentimes just unwieldy and confusing. So that's why I had that first section in order to sort. I don't use email. Typically what I do, and this is probably the best way to do it, is just create a link. You can shorten it if you want to. It doesn't really matter. You can click Control C to copy, or you can click the copy right here. And as you can see, it's copied to the clipboard. And then what you can do is you can put it into JT Learn or OneNote or however it is that you share these things, and then the kids can find the link and take the quiz.